Hello and welcome to this webinar, Communicating in Crisis. You're all so welcome to join us today. You'll have noticed that I have a slightly different accent from other webinar hosts that have gone before. My name's Hannah Vaughan-Spruce. I'm the Regional Coordinator of Divine Renovation in the UK. And you're all so welcome today. You'll have seen that we have done all kinds of webinars to this point within Divine Renovation. The time that we're in at the moment is an unprecedented time for all of our parishes. Lots of people are grappling with how to lead well at this time. And you'll see lots of previous webinars that we've done on the Divine Renovation YouTube channel, and I'd invite you to check all of those out. Today we're talking about communicating in crisis. I'm going to share a little bit about what that means in a moment. But first of all, I just want to invite everyone who's participating in the webinar today to just introduce themselves. So we actually have two guests today with the same name. They're both called Justin. So Justin Demoy, I'd love you to introduce yourself first.
Hi, I'm Justin Demoy. I'm the Communications Director at St. Anne Parish in Coppell, Texas. We're just west of Dallas. Super happy, excited to be here.
So great to have you, Justin. And Justin Tarsick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, Hannah. It's an honor to be here. My name is Justin Tarsick. I am the Strategic Partnerships Manager with Subsplash, and we're a Christian organization that helps churches take the next best step forward when it comes to engaging digitally with your communities and congregations.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Justin. It's so good to have you here. And last but not least, Mike Tanner, who some of you will have seen before. Do you want to introduce yourself, Mike?
Sure. Thanks, Hannah. My name is Mike Tanner, and I am the Director of Communications for Divine Renovation. I'm focused or situated in Halifax, Nova Scotia, so just across the pond from Hannah and just across the continent from everybody else. And happy to be here today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike. So just before we dive into the topic, I'd love to just start with prayer. So we're all gathered here digitally, virtually, all around the world. Let's just gather together in prayer. And I'm just going to ask Mike to lead that for us.
Absolutely. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. God, thank you for bringing all of us together today. Thank you for the opportunity to lead during this time. We ask that you bless the conversation that we have before us, and we ask that you bless those ears that listen today, that we are able to move forward in a missional mindset in this current season. We rejoice in hope, are patient in suffering, and persevere in prayer. And so we ask at this time that the Holy Spirit comes onto this conversation and enters into this area, and that we're able to lift up parishes and inspire them and equip them to bring people to Jesus Christ. And we ask all this in your Son's most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thanks so much, Mike. So just to share with you a few different ways that you can interact with this session today. Some of you have already found the chat, which is fantastic. There's a chat at the bottom of your screen, and I'd love to hear where you're from today. So please just put that in right now. Where are you joining us from today? And then there's the Q&A button. You'll also see a Q&A button there. We'd love you to put your questions to the panel in the Q&A button, in the Q&A section. So just go there and share your questions. And we'll be answering your questions throughout the webinar today. Today we're talking about communicating in crisis, and our parishes are in a difficult time, a time that we've never seen before. And we're finding that communication has never been so important as it is now. So we're going to be talking about all the different modes of communication. How can we best use our websites well? How can we use apps well? Social media, and what should our messaging be at this time? So we're going to have all kinds of different topics that we're discussing under this communicating panel. And we've got lots of fantastic expertise joining us today. So I think it's going to be a really good and fruitful session. So just to kick off, we'd love to hear from you. We're going to do a poll. We often open these webinars with a poll. And we'd love to hear from you in that poll, which is going to pop up in a moment. Is your parish regularly updating their website at this moment? So is your parish regularly updating their website at this moment? We've got three options: yes, no, or I'm not sure. So we would love you to vote right now. You'll have a few moments to do this, and then later on we'll be discussing some of the answers to that poll. So thanks very much to everyone who's voted. I'm going to kick off with our first question today that I want to put to our panelists. And I want to ask them, why is good communication important now more than ever? So Mike, why don't we kick off with you? Why is it important that parishes are communicating well at this moment?
Sure. Thanks, Hannah. So one of the things is that it's funny, the question of our parishes regularly updating their website. There's a lot of parishes that have updated their website with the words, "We are closed." And at this point in time, that's just simply not good enough. There's in crisis is the opportunity where people actually want to reach out and want to connect, have a lot of questions about what's happening, and are sort of settling into like, I really need to know what's going on right now. And a lot of people are leaning on their churches for that support during this time. And so communicating during that time is basically you saying, we are still here. And failing to do that, I think is just a huge mistake. It's not only letting down those people that are in your parish already, but it's failing to connect with our mission of reaching more people. When people see that we are just closed outright, end of story, closed when crises are happening and we're not communicating with them, I think it sends a message, a negative message to people who might want to connect.
Absolutely. Because I mean, our church buildings might be closed, but we're not supposed to be closed down as Christians, right? There's still a gospel to share. Justin Demoy, I'd love to hear from you about what are you doing at St. Anne's in Capel, Texas at the moment? How are you prioritizing communications right now?
So we have started out, and a lot of this has really been learning as we go. Nobody on our staff or in our leadership has gone through a global pandemic before. But we started out, our initial focus was really on a big redesign of the website because, Mike, like you said, it wasn't just good enough for us to say, hey, our campus is closed. Because if we don't offer our parishioners something in this time when we're separated, they're not going to come back once everything's back to normal. And so we knew that we had to have some kind of content, something for them that could minister to them in this time. And so we did a reorganization of the website. We took down everything that folks couldn't participate in anymore. A lot of our ministries, unfortunately, like our sacrament prep and physical kind of mass times, and switched it with all of our live stream times, our social links. We're creating some regular content for people to watch week in and week out with their small groups or with their families, how to get connected into online groups and things like that. So that's been our big push right here at the beginning.
Amazing. Because that's the real fear, isn't it? You know, like we don't know how long this is going to go on for, right? And will people still be there at the end if we don't connect with them? Justin Tarsick, have you been seeing parishes ramping this up? Like, why do you think they should be really going for it with communications right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been talking about the need for solutions in crisis. The reality is, though, that digital has already been the primary way that people are engaging even before COVID-19 and other panics we have. And so this is the way the society has been going anyway. And I'm grateful that there's been a lot of people who follow Jesus and have been following in obedience to create solutions that allow churches to connect digitally long before this stuff happened. The good news is while our faith is ancient, our tools don't have to be, right? And so, for instance, websites and apps and live streaming, the fact that we have multiple countries and continents joined together over this Zoom call right now is proof that we have, as a society, been able to prepare for moments like this. And there are organizations and platforms available that have like-minded mission and values and great quality that allow you to have meaningful engagement even before this. And so I would say that's the good news in my mind in all of this, is it's not impossible for us to connect. If this was happening 100 years ago and there was a pandemic 100 years ago, this kind of ministry wouldn't be possible today like it is. Stuff already exists, and that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. So parishes are being kind of dragged into the 21st century, kicking and screaming at this moment. We don't have a choice. This is the only way to connect right now. Mike, would you have anything else to say on that?
Yeah, I just think that one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is setting ourselves up for a level of success. And so, one of the things is we're never going to go back to the way things were. I mean, that is a fact of global history, is that when we move forward, we rarely say, all right, why don't we just get rid of the cars again and move back to horses? Or why don't we get rid of this and move back to this? It's just not the way we work. And so one of the things is that doing the right things now not only supports the people that need you right now, right at this moment, but it really sets you up to be able to succeed as people move forward. There's, we had Nikki Gumbel on Wednesday. On Monday. Days are becoming a little bit confusing now sometimes. Yeah. And so we had Nikki Gumbel on Monday, and he said that they've had incredible success with Alpha Online, so much so that they expect that there'll be a huge contingent of Alpha Online when this is all over. So the parishes that are just hoping they can ride this out, I mean, number one, we're realizing this is going to be longer than we thought. I mean, I think most people, when this was starting, I know I'm a parent of 2 kids, and my local government was like, we're going to close school for 2 weeks. And you're like, oh, okay, that seems like a while. And now we're like, and another month, and probably some more after that. And so we have to understand that this is not a temporary thing. And so you have to prepare now. And then also, what's going to happen when this is over? Where are people going to go? And they're going to go to the spaces that they already were connecting to at this time. And so I think that it's a long-term vision to prioritize communication during situations like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think some of us still have this mindset of, when we get things back to normal, then we'll carry on with our alpha, or then we'll carry on with, our RCIA preparation or whatever it is. And the thing is, I think, a lot of us are thinking, we don't know how long this is going to go on for, and we can't just wait till things get back to normal. The time to change is now. So I just want to jump to one of our questions that has come in. And someone says, what are your experiences with prayer times, like the Liturgy of the Hour, a prayer with a greater participation? And what methods do you suggest to start these prayer times online? Have any of you guys had experiences of prayer times online, live streaming prayer?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So something that we're doing at St. Anne and just started last week, I believe, is we're doing everything we can to help our parishioners establish a rhythm of prayer. Where I don't know about you guys, but most Catholics, in my experience, our rhythm of prayer is Mass on Sunday. And now that that's removed, we're trying to offer something in its place. And so every day we live stream at least 3 times a day. In the morning, one of our priests will give a spiritual reflection and then offer an opportunity for a spiritual communion in the morning. At noon, every day we pray the Angelus, and then once a week we add a rosary onto that, and once a week we do a live Mass, just a daily Mass. And then every day at 7, we pray together the Compline night prayer from the Divine Office. And obviously, some of those are more well attended than others. People are more excited to see a priest kind of preaching or Mass than maybe me jumping on my webcam here and leading the Divine Office. But we've seen really beautiful fruit, and it's just doing that through Facebook Live, through Instagram Live, through whatever means that we have available.
Fantastic.
I just wanted to add a small thing to that, which is one of the things that, so we tried our very first inter-office prayer over Zoom the first week that we were all working remotely. And over time, it's actually become quite a nice experience. One of the things we noticed first off is, number one, when we're all saying a prayer together, everybody mute their mics except maybe one person, because you thought it was hard before to actually get in tune with someone when you're saying Our Father or something like that. It's even more difficult when internet is lagging and those sorts of things. And one of the other things is we tried to sing a song together, and I will say the results were disastrous. So really making sure that in the things where we're doing something communally, you're not actually necessarily able to hear everyone, because it just really makes it a super difficult situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I would second that. Do not try and sing together. I think we're going to go to the results of our first poll if they're up. So the question was, is your parish regularly updating their website? So we've got 82% saying yes, which is fantastic. 8% saying no, and 10% saying I'm not sure. If you're not sure, you probably haven't seen anything change, so maybe that might be not a great thing. Guys, what strikes you about this? What kind of what would you say about the results of this poll?
I'll dive in quickly to this. So one of the things I would say is, first off, I'm very encouraged. I'm not shocked based on the idea that the people that are here are likely the people that are already a little bit more forward thinking in terms of knowing that they need to do this. So I'm not shocked in that way. We've seen so many parishes that either don't have websites up or don't have websites updated. And I think one of the things I think is important in this is some people look at getting a website up or getting an app up as such a daunting task. They look at it in terms of, oh, we don't have 8 months and $8 billion and we don't have all these things. And I think understanding that there are options and opportunities out there right now, and maybe Justin Tarsick, maybe you could speak into this, of being able to get up to speed quickly and get started quickly is possible right now for those that are maybe in that 18% that are either no or are not set up already.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Mike. I'm very encouraged, as you are, to see that high number of people that are actively engaging in keeping their website up to date. And I can also answer your question and also address another question that came in of some concrete examples of ways that people can invite and meet the greater community of your geographical area. In this digital and virtual world, you need ways to digitally and virtually share and invite people into something. And the short answer is, if there is no digital media or things that people can actually engage and interact with, things that your content that you're creating, those are the ways that people are interacting right now. So for instance, let's say somebody hears an inspiring word for them. It's a hope-filled word. It's a moment of prayer and devotion that is then archived. That video then is archived for on-demand purposes. People can start to share that with their friends in their own individual circles of influence, and that's how people now are invited to be a part of something. In an age of virtual and digital gatherings, we need archived and digital content created that people can then consume and be invited to share in those moments with. Those kind of tools are readily available today, even on the platform that I represent, Subsplash. Things like digital giving and media and websites and mobile apps. These are turnkey solutions that we can have in many cases up in 24 hours. So even if for people who are looking for, oh my gosh, I need something right away that is mobile responsive, and I need something that is going to meet the needs of just an average person Googling, where do I find good news in this time? And they land on your parish's website. We can get those things up to date for you very quickly and walk you through, as our team will walk you through how to do that well. And this is stuff that may seem difficult to tackle, but when you've got people who know what they're doing, it becomes a lot easier. And we can help remove some of those barriers for you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and if I could, off the second question that Justin was addressing about the geographical reaching out a little bit, we've seen just in our analytics on social media that people are really excited when you create anything, especially as a church, as a community that people feel so close to. We've, I thought this was a typo at first, but we've legitimately seen our Facebook reach and our Facebook engagement increase by like over 1,000%.
Wow.
And that's just from people sharing. And so if you create anything and encourage your faithful to share, that's the most organic and simplest way to spread the message and to reach people who maybe are on the periphery of your community, in your local area.
Fantastic. Justin, that kind of backs up a lot of other things that we've been seeing. Like, Nicky Gumbel was on the webinar earlier this week, and he was saying they had 2,000 people sign up for their marriage course. And then other smaller parishes that I've seen, they're finding that like daily mass attendance is like 10 times the number of people who would normally be in their churches for daily mass. So, I mean, the opportunity here is absolutely huge. Just going back to the question of websites, Justin Demoy, how did you approach the website when this crisis hit? You know, for parishes that don't have a communications director like you are, like what should they do? What should the website look like at this moment?
Yeah, there's a model out there by Donald Miller called Story Brand, and his big thing is when you go to the front page of your website, your home page, you need to be able to tell what's offered, what you're doing just immediately. Because if you've got to dig for it, if you've got to look for it, you're gonna check out, and to him, he's in the business world, so your customers are gonna abandon what they're doing. So primarily, the first thing that you need to have there is what the people want, what they're looking for, how they can get involved currently. And so that's that was our move. So if you go onto our website, stannonparish.org, you will see links to our live masses, to our recorded masses, we have a Sabbath guide that we publish to help people kind of pray through the Mass and pray throughout the week. And just for us, it was really important to remove a lot of the clutter that just people couldn't really participate in anymore. And not that that's bad, it's just not useful in this time. And so we wanted information that people could actually engage with there now. And there's a question in the chat asking about, is there a benefit to leaving normal ministry content there to kind of get that idea of normal vibrancy of a parish? There is value for new people to understand what your parish is like in a normal situation. I just personally believe that it's more important that people can get to the information very, very easily, get to the content that they can engage with currently. And so for us, that had us kind of push everything to the side. The pages aren't gone. They can still visit via direct links. But as far as navigation goes, it's just kind of our digital approach right now.
Yeah, and I would add to that. I think that's spot on. Even if you had a banner on your website that said how to connect during COVID-19, and that was the first thing that people saw when they logged into your website, so they could click on it and it would have a list of different options of connecting. Maybe it is digital, PDFs that have the information that normally people would collect in print form could be available for them to still view online. Maybe it is links to the live stream. Maybe it's ways for people to digitally give. Have all of that streamlined in one spot. So the first thing they see is how to connect during COVID-19. That would probably be the best piece of advice that I could give. And that what we're seeing across thousands of churches and parishes across the world that are adapting and adjusting very quickly. The second thing that I would say, in addition to what Justin had mentioned, think of your website more of as a digital billboard, not like a giant informational hub. To your point earlier, the more information that people have to dig for, or the more thumb swipes on a phone that people have to do to get to your information, by the time they hit 5 or 6 thumb swipes, they're out. And so you want to make sure that you've got as much information that's easy to find in the most effective way possible. And most people are just looking, honestly, in this time, how to connect during COVID-19. So think of your website more as a digital billboard and less as a giant informational hub of everything that you offer. And that's the easiest way to get people up and running into the life of your community very quickly.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. This is such good stuff. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, thinking on that and building on what Justin DeMoise was saying as well, it's really about ensuring that people know what you value, they know who you are, and that's important. But they have to know right now what you're going to do for them, because they are reaching out in this moment. We are seeing people legitimately reaching out and going, I don't know what's happening in the world, and I haven't sorted out this whole God thing. And so now I'd really like to do that. And so we're finding that people want, they do want to know what it is you believe, but right now they're saying, how can we get this started? To build off of Hannah's numbers, to put it in perspective, when she was saying about 2,000 people being in the marriage course, for context, the normal number for that is 150. That's a lot. That's a big change. I mean, we're looking at even our own numbers for our website, and we're not a parish, but we help support parishes. And what we did was we shifted everything to basically say, if you want to look at the webinar, this is where you go to actually find out what's going on with the webinars. We have a free resource kit that we've put together to help parishes move through this. That's front and center on the website. And we've noticed that not only has our website traffic gone up by a couple of 100%, and not only has it been our new users has gone up by a couple of 100%, but what we're seeing is those numbers are translating over into social media, because that's where we're actually sharing a lot of that content and getting things in place. So, and this is to sort of build off one of the questions, a couple of questions actually in the Q&A section. People are sort of wondering, like, well, how do we get started with a plan? Like, what's a communications plan look like? And I think you really want to start with, what do people need right now? When you're looking at platforms, I want people to think about where their actual parishioners are, but I want them to think about where people are and where people are active in general, because you want to make sure that just because you don't have a lot of people on Twitter, or you don't have a lot of people on Instagram, we'll avoid TikTok for a minute, but just because you don't have people in those spaces doesn't necessarily mean that you won't find success in those spaces. We've seen dramatic growth, for example, in our Instagram account in the last little while, because people want to see pictures, videos, sharing. They want that really visual aspect of things. And so we've seen those things happen. So the communication plan really comes into what do people need to hear? What is a great way we can tell them? Please use visuals as much as possible, because otherwise you are just getting lost in the noise of text. And to really make sure that, again, things are shareable. Shareable content is what really matters right now, because people want to share, they want to connect. And so give them the opportunity to do that.
Amazing. Thank you, Mike. So you've kind of touched on social media, which we'll come to in a moment. I think just to introduce another poll right now, we want to ask you, is your parish regularly updating social media? Yes, no, or I'm not sure. Just before we go into that discussion about social media. But I love that question that Mary put on the Q&A about a communications plan. Just a reminder that if you have a question, do put it into the Q&A. It might not get seen in the chat because the chat is just so full with lots of great stuff. So put it into the Q&A button, and your poll is on your screen now. So do just click your answer to the poll. And the two Justins, I'd love to hear from you about a communications plan. What would you do if your parish was starting out from scratch and you had to put a plan together at this moment? What would you add to what Mike has already said?
Yeah, I can start if that's helpful. One of the things, and I work with in the world of Christianity, there's lots of streams and there's lots of different expressions of faith. And so I work with a lot of different denominations and very large global church networks. And one of the things that we are recommending that ministries, parishes, that churches do right away is a very simple 3-step plan if you don't already have something in place. And that's number one. There needs to be a way for people to give digitally. We understand that finances and resources are incredibly important during this time to keep the life of what we're producing on a day-to-day basis, hopefully beyond Sundays. It sounds like a lot of different parishes are doing that, ways for daily discipleship. But that giving is a huge component. So giving would be great. Second, we've talked a lot about where do you go to store archived content, or where do people go to find on-demand content that's going to actually be inspirational and not clutter their minds like the news feeds that we're being bombarded with right now, that's just consistently negative and overwhelming. I would recommend, because there are a lot of streams out there, the more you can consolidate under, and I don't like to use this word when we're talking about the gospel, but your brand. The reality is that your parish is a brand of some sort, where people are going and they're hoping to connect in specifically with what the message is that you're bringing forth. And so if we're directing people to multiple platforms, it can get very confusing. And so one of the things that we tell a lot of our parishes and our churches and ministries is, because the Subsplash platform, for instance, archives all your video content, you can just get stuff on your smartphone, do quick 60-second videos, archive that, and load it right up into your website or into mobile apps. And this kind of communication plan is really great, because when people are on YouTube and Facebook and other social media giants, it's great to have presence there. But if the bulk of people's interaction with you are on these platforms that are bombarded by advertisements, sometimes messages that are anti-gospel. Sometimes you have other licensing issues. We've seen YouTube and Facebook pull content, gospel-centered content from their platforms because it didn't align with either their values as an organization, which is scary, or it didn't align with some of the licensing things they've seen other places. And so having a place that has a dedicated gospel-centered drive behind it means that you can control the content that you're bringing and give people a singular source to go to help reduce the clutter of where they're supposed to go to visit. So I would say media content and curation and archiving after giving, and then your website should be up and running really quickly. And then down the road, we can talk about live streaming and apps and all those things because it can feel a little bit overwhelming. But out of the gate, if you can get giving, media, and website locked down, you're going to be in a really good place to keep connected with your parishioners on a regular basis.
Yeah, and if I could just piggyback off of that, I think getting that website updated and current is a really high priority because a lot of, for my church, a lot of our more seasoned parishioners get their information from the bulletin. And we do publish our bulletin online, but they primarily get that information by coming to a church on Sunday. That isn't an option anymore. And so the website really needs to become that place where they can get that information. And it's great because it's on demand. The second thing I would really look at doing is expanding that reach through social media, maybe through an email newsletter. We use one. We've seen it grow greatly during this time. And there was a question in the Q&A, I think, about congregation is diverse and doesn't always have access to technology and online services. If that is an infrastructure issue, I can't really address that. I'm sorry. But if it's maybe just a knowledge-based thing, they don't know how to set up an email, don't know how to set up Facebook or Instagram, call them, reach out to them. Your parish staff, whether it's just you and a secretary or you and 50 other people, y'all have more time on your hands right now than you probably have had in the history of your church. And so if you can assign, or maybe even get some of your more dedicated leaders, your volunteers to step up and call these people and just say, hey, go to gmail.com, pick your favorite, you can use your first name, last name, you can be baseball kid. That was mine in junior high. It was really cool. But just get that introduction to these online platforms there. And then when all of this is over, you now have an opportunity to continue to reach people digitally, which is way cheaper in the long run than print or physical mailers or things like that.
Absolutely. I'd love to jump to one of the questions. So thank you all for sharing the questions in the Q&A. You can also vote for questions. So don't forget you've got that ability. You can vote for a question and it will push it up to the top. There's one question from someone saying, how often should we email our parishioners? What should we include in our emails? So what's like a good emailing strategy right now?
I wouldn't mind diving in on this. When this happened, like when I say this happened, so depending on what part of the world you're in, this may have already happened, or for us in Nova Scotia, we were about 3 weeks ago that things really, really locked down. And in the beginning, we were emailing people very regularly. Like we sent out emails like every couple of days, basically, to just say like, hey, we want to let you know what's happening. And so I think what we need to be conscious of is a couple things. Number one, so is everybody else. My email inbox is absolutely bananas right now. And with in the beginning, it was, what are we doing to safeguard or to show you what we're doing in this crisis and those sorts of things. And I got to learn what every company I've ever subscribed to was doing in this season. And then over time, what we've realized is people are getting a lot of these, and we're starting to settle into a little bit of a rhythm of what we're doing. And so as much as possible, try and get yourself a little bit of vision ahead of where you're at so that you can start to share and say, hey, this is what we do right now is we send out a weekly. And what we say is, this is what happened last week. And here's where you can access everything, because most of what we're doing is producing webinars like this, our podcast series, etc. And so it's mostly, what did we do last week? Here's where you can get it. Here's what we're doing next week. Here's how you can set up for it. And how can we help you? And so really just giving people that sort of like a refresher on what just happened, looking ahead to what's going to happen next, is the way that we've really gone about it. What I would say is if you have information to share it, but try not to overwhelm people with, getting 1, 2, 3 emails a day. There are a few services where I'm getting multiple emails a day of them saying, here's what we're doing. And I'm like, did you know what you were doing 45 minutes ago? Because that's the last time I got an email from you. So really just trying not to overload people during the season is important, but make sure that we are communicating with people.
Yeah. Guys, should we jump into social media? I'd love to hear what's a good strategy for social media right now? Like what kind of content are you sharing? Perhaps Justin Demoy, would be great to hear from you. What content are you sharing right now? How are you using your social media channels?
Yeah, so we've really leaned into Facebook just because that's where a lot of our parishioners currently are. Going into this, we had a much larger following there already than we did Instagram. And we've really tried to embrace all of the features that Facebook offers. One of the biggest ones being Facebook Live. And so I've given permission to a lot of different staff members. They now have like the editor access, so they can go in and just jump in on their phone and they'll lead a prayer or something like that. Like I mentioned earlier, we do the 3 times daily prayer live on Facebook Live. We also do it on Instagram Live. But we're also sharing any content that we know that people, any sort of information kind of operations wise about the pandemic and how it's affecting us and our church closure and our diocese and things like that, pushing those out. But the biggest thing that we're trying to do is really 2 things. One is to publish content that will get engagement, because people don't have that opportunity to engage face-to-face anymore. And so the best thing that we can offer is that digital engagement, that opportunity for digital conversation, whether it's in comments or chat, whatever that looks like. So really pushing that engagement. And 2 is if there is anything informational, we are trying to push them to the website. And so it'll be some kind of an image with a header that's like, hey, here's an update on COVID-19 for us. Click to go to the website, because we do want to reinforce that the website is that home of all of this information, all of these updates. And we're really pushing our social media use to be that direct contact, but also that engagement. And Instagram, we do use live. We're doing a lot more stories, kind of posting schedules and posting just fun little quips. We have a weekly challenge that we're doing every Sunday and throughout the week. So this week it's make a home altar, share a picture, and we'll add it to our story. That's been really fun. Last week it was, I think we were getting ready for Palm Sunday. But yeah, we've been using social media.
Awesome. Would you guys add, Justin Tarsick, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. I think these are great questions because, again, there are so many different options out there. It can be overwhelming. I think it was said earlier, go to where your people already are. And so if you have an idea of where there is higher engagement, as Justin Demoy said, they found that Facebook had a higher gathering than Instagram. Great. So go to where people are already naturally congregating. That's going to be probably your best place for immediate engagement. There's a component of this as well, though, that as you're building out your platforms, we also want to think long term because we have a really unique opportunity as a society and as ministries right now to recognize that when we get people in the middle of crisis, and I don't say that in any kind of like we're going to grab people in crisis, but if we're capturing people's attention and leading them on a journey of hope and faith in crisis, they will be with us long term. And so what does that look like then from a long-term strategy? And it's good to start, I think, laying some of the foundations and groundwork for that long-term strategy in the midst of immediate help as well. One of the practical things that I would say right off the bat is when it comes to social media specifically, Instagram and Facebook have a really unique way of capturing the life of a community or the life of your parish. And so if you're going to focus on content there, I would recommend high visuals. And so even if you've got a picture of somebody reading a Bible and there's a laptop in the background, that's great because everybody is connecting via some kind of technology right now. We acknowledge that I'm a fan of the printed word of God over digital means, but I still need technology to connect in with the people side of this right now. And there's by the way, there's great royalty-free stock photography sites. There's one called unsplash.com, which is fantastic. If you've never used unsplash.com, you can get royalty-free stock photography there. A lot of faith-based images that you can grab and help to use that, and you don't have to pay for that. So that would be a great resource for just for your own content. But then the other thing you can do is you want to make this easy on yourself as well. So what I wouldn't try to do is pick 10 platforms and then keep those updated every day. You're gonna burn yourself out really fast. I would maybe just focus on one or two, or find a platform that can actually update a number of different things at once. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased because I work with Subsplash, but one of the things that's beautiful about our platform is across websites and apps and live streaming and giving and all these different outlets where you're asking people to engage, all of these from our platform come into one centralized dashboard where you can do one-click publishing to update multiple digital spaces at once. So even with live streaming, you can use our platform and it'll live stream to YouTube and Facebook and all of the other social media giants. But then that will be archived through a dedicated hosting place where then when people go back to engage, because they're going to want to go to your website for information. But they're going to want to go to the other social channels really to engage with the life of the community. So that's probably the best way to think about that. Where's your congregation or your parishioner base already gathering from? Utilize that. And then are you putting community focused imagery and like things that are happening in the life of your parish and social media, and then information goes on your website, and then try to limit the amount of places that you're sending people. And this is why I would say apps work really well in this time, because you can do, again, this is another thing that almost sounds a little backwards, but digital discipleship. This is a word that I'm hearing more and more of. How do we lead people on a journey of discipleship throughout the week when they can't connect in person? Apps have a really, really unique way of allowing people to engage in with the life of your parish on a regular basis through digital means, and this content becomes incredibly shareable. And so that's something I'd recommend as well as looking into if you haven't, because then you can dedicate all the content that you're creating under a branded source that is to you, and really control the messaging that comes through there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Justin. Yeah.
Sorry. I just wanted to add on the social media, we've had some more questions about stuff. And one of them was, how often do you put content on social media? And this is, look, if you can answer this question with any degree of accuracy, you're going to beat about 1 million people on the internet, because there's 1 million different opinions on how often you should post content. There are lots of, this actually goes back to the social media communications plan as well, which is, a lot of this stuff is already out there and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So organizations like Buffer, Hootsuite, Agorapulse, who are organizations that help you post content out, they help you sort of manage your different social media platforms. Almost all of them have done studies on when is the right time to put out content, how much content should you put out, what kind of content does best on each of these platforms. And it's funny, a long time ago, I used to work at a computer shop. And when people would have questions, the very first thing I would do with their question is, they're standing in front of me, I've got my big computer in front of me, and I would literally type in Google exactly what they asked me. And 9 times out of 10, the answer would come up and it would be the right answer. And so one of the things I would really push people to is use Google right now and look up best social media communications plan for a church. The other thing is, don't shy away from social media communications plans that aren't for church. Business has invested for centuries in how to make evangelists for their products, and we have not in such major ways. So this is the opportunity to say, there's a great idea from the business world that is going to make sense right now in this time. And so really do that. One thing I'll say is, don't overload people with media right now. Be calm and patient with people. But try to make sure that you're in regular connection. Look at how often your followers are online. If you're following people on Facebook or on Twitter that are part of your congregation, if you're seeing them posting a lot, well, then you should probably be in those spaces more because they're active and they're there. But if you're seeing them walk away and come on once a day and post, well, then maybe it makes more sense for you to come on and do sort of a daily message or something like that. But really just pay attention. and pay attention to what's happening right now and how people want to engage with you.
I love that. I think now might be a great time to get the results for our poll on social media. So is your parish regularly updating social media? 71% are saying yes, which is great. 20% saying no. 8% I'm not sure. So they're obviously not seeing it, which might suggest they're not updating regularly. Guys, any thoughts on the results of the poll?
I would say it's not surprising that that it's different, that the yeses are lower than website, which
Right.
I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, because this virus has been so quick moving and the situation really has been changing for us, at least here in Texas, day to day. We're just now kind of getting into the rhythm of new life here. And so the idea that so much focus, so much emphasis is put on the website as that kind of home for all of this information is probably appropriate. I would say to those folks who are no's or who are I'm not sure, is that like get your house in order, house being like the website, but then really go and look at what your presence is on social media. See where your people are, whether they're on Facebook or Instagram, and if maybe you don't know where to get that content, you don't know what to post. Something that we've done, because obviously as the communications director, I can't now walk around with my Canon taking photos of everybody in their homes. And so we just put out a story saying, hey, what are you doing? Send pictures, tag it to us, give out my email. Just, there are people that I know who are pretty savvy with their cell phone, and so they can take decent photos. And so just reaching out to them personally saying, hey, can you and your family get together and maybe just be sure to take pictures as y'all watch the live stream, as you guys are praying together, even if you're just having dinner together, just take photos and share them. This is a time to really lean into our leaders and our parishioners in our church. And I've been not surprised. I'm very happy with how they responded. And so I would invite y'all to do the same. Amazing.
Thank you, Justin. Just going into some of the questions, there's a question about Zoom. I know I'm spending my entire life on Zoom right now, as most of us I think are. Father Edward asks that they've been looking at setting up Alpha and parish meetings on Zoom. And there's a question about security and privacy. I know that you can set up passwords, can't you, for your Zoom meetings? So perhaps that makes it a little bit more secure. But I don't know if anyone else has got any other comments on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind answering that. This is something that's come up lots of times on lots of different platforms, and the fact of the matter is that there is no way for us to ensure that a platform is safe and secure. What we've noticed over the years with the number of security breaches on various platforms and those are the things that the platforms weren't directly involved in. If we look at things like Cambridge Analytics with Facebook and things like that, what we know is that there's no way to guarantee security, and that there is not a platform that can be 100% secure. There's lots of companies that are trying to come up with sort of one-to-one communications, encrypted communications, and most of these companies are actually quite good at it. Zoom has a very good reputation, but we're also seeing things right now with people getting able to hack into Zoom calls and basically, graffiti and get involved in negative ways. So there's not really a way to say we can for sure secure this. And that's unfortunately something that we have to live with as reality. What I would say is that most of the platforms that you are using are probably just as secure as Zoom. If your email is no different, none of these platforms are. And so I don't want to give people a false sense of security, but I also don't want to give them a sense of fear in terms of not using these things. I use all these platforms. I feel very comfortable with it. I'm comfortable doing most of these things. And you are going to have people that are uncomfortable with it. And you have to realize that that's a reality you're going to have to deal with. whether it's people just saying, look, I'll join these things, but I'm not going to join my video. I don't want my video up there, or I don't want whatever. There's options. You can set yourself up as an anonymous user, and you can join those sorts of ways. But, we do have to realize that there is no way to ensure that these are 100% secure during this time.
Thanks, Mike. Guys, I just want to throw out a question about, this crisis is really exposing, I think, those parishes who were just so ill-equipped to face something like this. Mike talked about parishes that had literally just put themselves as closed. And, I've come across parishes in the last few weeks who literally don't have anything set up. Like, they've got no database even complete, so they can't even email their parishioners, and no communication system. What would you advise to a parish that's in that situation and they're just literally starting everything from scratch? Justin Tarzik, do you want to say something? Because I'm sure you're dealing with parishes like that every day.
Yeah, sure. Again, it's been said over and over, but I think a website is so key, and having a place that, again, people can contact and reach out. So if you even have a little form that's like a contact form on there that's linked to your email. I know it's a little bit more difficult, obviously, if you're starting from the place where you don't have emails for any of your parishioners. One of the things you could possibly do is somebody's got an email address and somebody's got a phone number of somebody somewhere, and maybe you've got some people who are more like influencers within your body, and so you could reach out to them possibly and see if you could help other people get the news out of where to start directing your attention to. I think, again, that website, having it up is key, because people are searching and we're so in tune to look that direction. So again, I think website, we've talked about social media, but again, it can just feel overwhelming. I would really just start with the website and then reaching out to a few of your influential people within your community and start asking them to help you spread the word. That would be an easy way to get started.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Someone also is asking Justin Demoy about your weekly challenge. Any other examples? They want to steal your ideas. This is the best thing to do. Just copy and steal everything.
That's right. What is that? Picasso, good artist create, great artist steal.
Yeah. There you go.
I'm pulling up our release schedule right now, just so I can make sure that I'm giving everyone up-to-date information. But if there is, obviously it's really easy to follow along. You can visit our website, stannyanparish.org. You can find us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/stannyancatholic. And our Instagram handle is @stannyancatholic. So you can follow along as we're posting things. You have my permission now to take and use and repurpose whatever you want. Like, we're one body of Christ. We're all in this together. We're not going to hoard anything at St. Anne. But some ones that we've done really well in the past, especially for Instagram, because the ability to share and reshare through stories is really great. And stories is one of those strange media. I don't know what the plural of that is, but where if you post to the feed a lot, it can feel very spammy, or if you send people a lot of emails, it can feel very spammy. But stories is one of those things where you can post like 10, 15 stories and people really don't mind. And so if you send out a challenge in the morning, so like this weekend was Palm Sunday, obviously, and we didn't do a distribution of palms. So instead, we invited our community to grab whatever greenery you have in your house, wrap it in something like with a red ribbon or something, and hang it on your front door, take a picture of it, tag us post it in your Instagram story and tag us in it. And it's just things like that do really well to generate excitement. And so like this week, we have the home altar going. In past weeks, it's just been pictures of your family participating in Mass, or how are you praying in this time? Instagram stories, and it just really has a great ability to have that interaction through like questions and answers, through polls, through tagging and sharing. So that's where a lot of these challenges have really been focused in Instagram.
Fantastic.
Yeah, if I could just piggyback off that a little bit. Yeah. Instagram is, especially in their stories, when you look at things like polls, when you look at questions, when you look at the ways you can share, it's not a push format in a lot of ways. It really is a conversational and engaging platform. And so you really have that ability to do that. What I don't love when I see is when parishes, brands, etc., are just like, here we are, here we are, here we are. Like, it's just like us, us, us. It's very central focus. And I get why they're doing it, because they want to make sure people have things. But at this time, you want to build things. And I think of our regional coordinator for Canada, Eric Myatt. Eric will often post on his own Instagram, here's my family getting ready to watch the St. Benedict live stream. Not only is that really nice and it's good to see and it builds that community, but what if there's someone who follows Eric that doesn't follow Jesus Christ? And they actually get to see, okay, what does he mean? He's doing church today from home. From the safety of my own couch, I can go ahead and do this today. So I think that really what we need to realize is the opportunity for evangelization during this period is way past anything we've ever experienced before. This is the season of evangelization if we want to make it that. And if we don't, that's a failure of us during this time.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Mike. I think now's our moment. Really, there's such huge opportunities ahead of us. Just with that in mind, guys, I'd love to just hear what your perhaps closing thoughts are on all of this. Like, if you had one message for everyone leaving the webinar today, what would it be? Like, what would be your takeaway message for people? Justin Tarsick, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, I would love to. I was praying for my church. I'm a pastor as well, and I work at Subsplash. And I was praying for my family and things a few weeks ago, and I felt the Holy Spirit lead me to Isaiah 46:10, where God says, "I am God, and I declare the end from the beginning." And God had said to me in that moment, He said, "If you can trust my sovereignty, then you can trust that I have a strategy." And that was so helpful to me in a moment. So the first thing I would say is just breathe. The church as an entity has moved forward for thousands of years and will continue as well. So the first thing is God's got this, and He's in control, and breathe. The second thing I'd say is there are strategies and there are great tools in place that you can use to do all of this stuff and to lay out a systematic plan to do it. So I would plan and prepare and start to make moves today. Again, you've heard a lot of talk about websites and social media. I would jump on and do something, especially people are looking for Easter. These are Google keywords that are going to be coming in. If you can take a look at what your strategy is to help people get redirected when they're doing Google searches this week to your parish and to your ministries, then find out ways to do that. But websites and social media, this stuff exists today, and you've heard a lot of really great conversation around how to make that effective, or at least how to get something started. So I would make a plan and at least take some steps forward on some of those platforms today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Justin Demoy, any final closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, I really want to echo Justin's message of hope. Obviously, there's a lot of anxiety going into this and a lot of uncertainty of what's the future going to be. Well, especially in this time where we were kind of taking closures week by week. Now we're pushed out to May. But just in meeting with my parish staff and as we have prayed together, I've just really gotten this sense of hope of just like, this is really a pivot point for the church globally, I think. And one of my bosses, Kurt, had an exchange with Father James briefly on Twitter of, this is really highlighting the need of churches to be mission-minded. These maintenance-focused churches, they're really feeling the pain right now. And the parts of us that were still maintenance-minded, we're really feeling it. And so this is a beautiful, beautiful chance to pivot, to really focus on mission, because like Justin said, this isn't the first global pandemic the church has faced, and the church has gotten through all of them. And there is a light at the end of this tunnel. There will be an end, and the work that we do now builds for that future. And so utilizing these strategies, generating an online presence now will only help for the future. And so just echo that message of hope that God does have this. He has a plan for this. And this is a great, great, great opportunity to expand your digital reach.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mike, any kind of last thought from you?
I just really want to say, this was something that Father James said the other day in the webinar. He was talking about one of my favorite things about Father James is that he regularly tells you what a word means in its original Greek or its original whatever. You learn a lot about words when you're hanging out with Father James. But he was talking about patience coming from the word passion. And so it's fine for us to be patient right now with what's happening. It's fine for us to be patient with one another. But patient doesn't mean waiting. It doesn't mean stopping. It doesn't mean caution in some ways. This is a time for us to be patient, but incredibly active in what we are pursuing. And so I would just really encourage parishes to do the work right now. Like, take this time to not only deal with the crisis as it stands before us now, but to be able to continue what's going to happen next. Because when this ends, you're going to want to have been there for your people during that time.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. We're a little over time, so I'm just very quickly going to share the webinar that we've got coming up. We've got a little bit of a break between now and the next webinar, thanks to the Triduum and Easter. We've got a few days off. But next Thursday, this is a webinar that we'd love to invite you to join us on, Real People Virtual Alpha. Many of you would have joined us with Nikki Gumbel earlier this week, and so many people were asking on that webinar questions, really practical questions about how do you do online Alpha. So Stephen Foster, who's the National Director of Alpha UK, is going to be coming on that webinar, and I know it's going to be really fantastic, very practical, very helpful. So we'd love you to join us for that. And finally, just stay in touch with us. We know that we can't always answer all the questions on these webinars because there are just so many questions. So if there's something that's left unanswered for you, or if you just want to get in touch with us and share stories, share what's happening, there are emails on your screen now, communications@divinerenovation.org, and all the different ways that you can connect with us online. So I just want to finish by thanking all of our speakers so much. You guys, your passion, your expertise is really inspiring. Thank you so much for joining us today. And just to wish everyone a very blessed and holy celebration of the Triduum and a happy Easter when it comes. And we will see you next week. Thank you all.